The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
Gordon, you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man, in Alameda, California, right across the bay from San Francisco, in the northern part of the greatest state in the world, I think. And Howie, you're going to agree with me. You're a returning guest. The only thing that makes this podcast interesting is that I do get to talk to the most interesting folks in the world. I mean, fascinating people who live life with a passion, have an interest, and are accomplishers. So welcome back in the spirit of that and opening day, Howie Gordon.
Boy, you hit the ground running. 3 home runs, huh?
Whew. Not bad, right, for an old man?
Yeah, you're doing great.
In a small town. So, Howie, let's catch up a little bit. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm 2 weeks shy of my 70th birthday. Actually, 5 weeks, but I'm close. I'm getting nervous about that.
You nothing to be nervous about. I'm here to talk to. I went through it. I went through 71. Now, I'm going to need you to...
The doctor is in.
Yeah, the doctor's in. I know. It's no different than 70 is the new 68. So, how does that make you feel about mortality?
Well, I was sitting here. Mostly, I rise in the morning and get out of bed, and I don't get dressed. I go right to my desk, and I'm working on a book. So I start working on my book, and I do my computer reads. I work on my email. I check out Facebook, and then I try to segue into the book work. And I can go till 5 or 6 o'clock, and there's no reason to get dressed, so I don't.
Nice.
And today, in honor of this phone call, and in honor of opening day, I got dressed. I got dressed as if I was going out to play.
Well, funny that in honor of this phone call with a former porn star, I got
you
undressed.
Put on the condom.
I got undressed. I'm sitting. I'm sitting. Maybe the call will come. Maybe Howie can fix me up with the powers that be, and I could get paid just for one day's work. I just want one day's work for what you did.
Well, as Kevin Costner heard in Field of Dreams,
oh,
if you rub it, it will come.
Very, very good. Very good. Now, what stage of achievement are you in? Have you just completed a book? Are you working on a book?
I am. I'm trying ridiculously, I might add, to promote the book I've already written.
Okay.
Which is like being the wisest man in the kingdom of the fools. I have no business cup. I'm the Jew that didn't get the memo about how to sell. So I've written, I think, a fabulous, fabulous book. I am so proud of it. I love it. I read it all the time myself. But I don't know how to promote it. I can't get any play out of mainstream media because of the content about pornography. I mean, these days, if I was Stormy Daniels, I could sell it. But I didn't fuck Donald Trump. He wasn't my type, so I didn't get a chance to do that.
Well, I don't want to say that you're catty, but he never really asked, did he?
Well, I'm sure if he'd read my book, he might invite me down for a little golfing.
He might, absolutely might. And talk about you'd be good counsel to the man. At least we know who he's talking to at the moment. So any time you spend with him keeps him off the streets.
Keeps him from tweeting.
Right, or whatever he does.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. It's opening day weekend, and you are an incredible baseball fan, as I recall, a Pirate fan. What does opening day mean to you?
Well, I was thinking about that, and it means a lot. I think of my own professional or my own career in organized baseball. And that's a story that I thought I would talk about with you.
Love to hear
I
it.
was born and raised in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Actually, I was born 2 blocks from Forbes Field. That was my backyard. And every day back then, in the 7th inning, they just opened up the gates. You could just walk in off the field. You have a ticket or not. Of course, the Pirates were in last place for the entire 1950s until 1958, which was the year that I started playing baseball. So for opening day for me, wasn't the Pirates opening day. It was the first day of Little League. And I was born on the border of the Jewish community and the Polish Catholic kind of community in Pittsburgh. It was a Greenfield and Squirrel Hill. Squirrel Hill's where the Jews lived, and Greenfield was where that was a Goyish section. You know the word Goyish?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Very
just
much
checking
so.
in.
As a matter of fact, my father was from the same type of district in Poland in pre-war, where the Catholics were all around, and he had little Jewish stepples or communities, and
Yes.
the Catholics helped round up the Jews to take them to the concentration camp. They helped the Nazis that way.
Yeah, they were real friendly that way.
You can't. You got to give them A for compatibility. They fit in. They did beautiful work. If you judge them from very, very efficient. They kept the trains running. They're wonderful people. And as a matter of
that's a bitter cup of coffee right there.
I know. What can I tell you? Hey, speaking of which, we debuted a show on the network.
I know you. I listened to it this morning.
Did you enjoy it at all?
I did, but I kept being stunned by the notion of the title and the focus of let's look at some pain. Let's really get in there and suffer today.
Well, you gotta do that once in a while. These poor people were disenfranchised. Over 600 living players disenfranchised from a pension program that is the most lucrative program. The association, Baseball Players Association, used to be a union. They don't like to be called that. They have almost $3 billion in assets. That's B with a billion. And in 1958, that same player union that you followed with the Pittsburgh Pirates had like $12,000 in their fund. And these are people now that refuse to see the light of making it right with disenfranchised players. And Doug Gladstone wrote a book, a Bitter Cup of Coffee, about the plight of these players, and they're trying to get them recognized. He is, and he's graced our airwaves as a network, Comfortably Zoned Radio, that he does a podcast now. He debuted it just today, and he's going to interview these players and find out about their lives. And it's very fascinating to me that the situation that they're in and the greed of those that have, and they make no caring. It transcends baseball. It transcends. It's every industry, the church, the synagogue, the hierarchy. They don't give a damn what the working person has, and it's a facet of society that's really screwed up. So,
well, it reminds me of things like Andy Van Slyke out of Pittsburgh, who was a right-wing type Republican, and Lynn Swan jumping into politics and running for governor as a Republican. It's a funny world.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a righteous cause, and one wishes. On the other hand, I was also thinking about, in terms of talking to you today, I just happened to stumble into Ken Burns's Jackie Robinson documentary, which I saw again. I hadn't seen it since it debuted, whenever it was. What a fascinating piece of work. Ken Burns is just great. And Robinson, he didn't, baseball, in his case especially, was how to participate in the promise of America. And in terms of what we just started talking about leading us into this, was, for me, it was the same thing. I was raised as an Orthodox Jew. And in my neighborhood, we didn't have the money to be deeper into the Jewish community. We were right on the fringe. In fact, I was so on the fringe that when they put in the dividing line, they divided the city into wards. The 14th ward was the Jewish community, and the 15th ward was more the Polish Catholic neighborhood. And we were actually in the 15th ward. So when it came time to play ball, I was not eligible to play with the Jews. I had to play in the 15th ward. And there were only about 5 or 6 of us who played, if we wanted to play, and who didn't, was to go into the 15th ward and play with the Gleam. So I tried out. It was all very serious. They took their baseball really seriously. It wasn't like the more modern equivalent where everybody plays and everybody gets a trophy and da-da. This was like already the major leagues kind of thing is how the kids grew up. Because it was either, at that age, I think I was 10, you either grow up to be a baseball player or you work in the steel mills. Those were your choices.
What did your dad do? I can't imagine him working in a steel mill or
he owned a gas station.
Player. Okay.
He owned a gas station. It was one he had right before, he bought it with his brother right before World War II started. It was a hole in the wall, just a little shack and a couple of pumps. And when he went off to war, he was drafted. His older brother, who didn't go to war, kept trying to sell it. And my mother wouldn't let him sell it because she was convinced if she sold the gas station, he wouldn't come back alive. So she resisted it and held on to it, and he came back. Thank God, because I wouldn't be here talking to you if he didn't. In fact, that's another great story. I'll tell you that story. There's a good story here. My father, when I'm about 12, 14 years old, he takes me aside one day. He says, I want to tell you about the war. And he said, I was in basic training, and I was in infantry replacement. He says, you know what that is? And I said, no. He says, that's cannon fodder. They die, they just put in a new batch. So I'm training for that. And I had psoriasis, and it makes you itch, and it's a skin disease. And so I didn't feel like training that day, and I go to see the doc, and I show him my psoriasis. And they gave him whatever the 1942 equivalent for treatment for psoriasis was, which wasn't much. And he's leaving. And as he's leaving, he's standing in the doorway, halfway out the door, and he says, oh, by the way, doc, I'm having some bleeding from my rectum. And my father did not want to tell the doctor about this, but his fear of what it was got the best of his embarrassment of what it was. And he mentioned it to the doctor. And the doctor said, come back in. And he examined him. And my father had ulcerative colitis. And they knew less about that than they did about psoriasis at the time. But they immediately put him in the hospital because it was much more dangerous disease. And he goes in the hospital. His platoon is called to battle the next day. They go overseas, and he's in the hospital back in the States. They get wiped out.
Oh, my God.
And my father says to me, I'm telling you this just so you see how life is. Because if I don't make that comment to the doctor, which I didn't want to do, I was embarrassed about it, you don't get born. I don't come home. It's a different world.
Howie, I have such a similar story to tell you about my own life. I was stationed at Travis Air Force Base in the Air Force, and I went in to get out of going to Vietnam as fodder. And I loved being at Travis and didn't want to be stationed anywhere else. And I serendipitously ran into a kid who I did a favor for and drove him to Sacramento. And he was visiting California and Travis from his base in Washington, where he was in charge of base. He called it base ops, where you want to be stationed and stuff. he could do you right. And he asked me where I wanted to go, and I said I wanted to stay where I am. And he said, go up to the hospital, tell them you have a cold or something, they'll treat you, and temporarily put you on an unable to get orders to go anywhere, to go to Vietnam list. And when you go back, they'll take your name off that list, but never go back and tell them you're cured. Just disappear from the system, and that will stay on your record, and you'll never be stationed anywhere more, anywhere that you don't want to be. And I said, thank you, sir, and that's exactly what I did. And that so much coincides with your story about your dad.
Yeah.
He missed it by, just by talking to the doctor or just by fate. But it was fate that I ran into that kid and he told me what to do. So, and, that's how life is. One day to the next, you cross the street, you meet somebody, he tells you to go here, gives you a number there, and you go from hither to yon based on absolutely no idea of what's going to happen, and one door opens another, and it's an adventure. And you're one of those guys that can roll with that and know that there's nothing pre-designed or anything. It's just a series of coincidences and happenings. And you've done great by that. You go from, you have instincts to keep you out of harm's way. On some level, same as your dad did. There's something there.
Well, he finished the story by telling me that when he was fit for duty again, and they reassigned him to another situation. Turned out that day there was an opening in the motor pool, and my dad was a mechanic. So he raised his hand and said, and they put him in that, and he got pulled out of the infantry replacements and put in the motor pool. He spent the war fixing cars just behind the front lines in Germany, and then he was in the Pacific after that.
And he was given a trade too.
Well, he had the trade before he went in, but that's what spared him from having an expertise. It spared him from the combat operations.
Nice. Did you have kids?
So it's opening day.
I want to ask you, Howie, did you have kids?
Yes, I still do.
Oh, okay.
I changed the locks, but they still get in.
They still get in, yeah. Got to secure the windows. That's it. Remember the song?
I have 3 kids, and now I have 4 grandchildren.
Wow. That's great.
And that's just the beginning. They've just begun spawning. 2 of them have 2 each, and the third has yet to start his brood.
Nice.
In fact, I have a beautiful poem that I wrote. Speaking of what am I doing lately. Actually, this is a song that doesn't have its music yet, and I'll share it with you because it's short. Never felt forever until I looked into that baby's eyes. She didn't need no TV. She didn't need no crossword puzzle. She just looked at me. That's all she was doing with those baby eyes. She was just 18. She was just 18 hours old. Not even one day. And she was in no hurry to get anywhere. That's what she was doing. That's what she was doing with those baby eyes. She weren't in no hurry. She weren't in no worry. She was just looking at me. And I was just looking at her. And I never felt forever until I looked into that baby's eyes. Forever doesn't start or finish, I learned. You're just there. And then you're not. She turned her head and started sucking with her lips like she was looking for Mama's breast. She was rooting, my wife tells me. She was rooting for her mama. And I was rooting for her.
Wow. Very, very nice. Can't wait to hear the music that goes with it. It's going to...
Me too. Me too. I don't know how it's going to happen, but it's another one of these things. You just put it out there, and sooner or later it comes around.
Very, very nice. So, you have a complete life.
I'm working on it. I'm looking for the happy ending.
Yeah. Well, the happy ending it's the journey, not the destination. So the journey is day to day, and however it ends, you knew that staying in the moment is much more important than how it ends.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nice.
Well, I'll share my ending. I've written my ending. I'm working on a book called Goulash, and I call it Goulash because I've been keeping diaries since 1965, junior in high school. And a friend of mine who's familiar with my work as a writer said, she called me out of nowhere. This is after Hindsight had been published, and I'm having trouble selling that because of the subject matter. She said, it's become very popular to people are writing books of fragments nowadays, things that start and don't go anywhere, just the beginnings, and they, that's how you write. That's what your diaries are like. You ought to do one of those. And I thought, okay, that's a good idea. And it reminded me of goulash, because a goulash is a bit of this and a bit of that. There's beef and there's some carrots and celery and potatoes and onion. So I have a book called Goulash, and the ending of the book is called A Selfie Eulogy, and there's a picture of a tombstone, and on the tombstone it says Selfie Eulogy. Don't make eulogies for me. I didn't know shit. And if the truth be told, I don't think that you know all that much either. I long ago made my peace with the fact that the human mind was just way too puny to comprehend just about any of the important anythings. Yes, there are exceptions, but I wasn't one of them, and I don't think you are either. The Einsteins are very few and far between, and man, they must feel lonely. Since I'm already gone, I'm just delighted not to have to be where you are, sitting there, fucking grieving. Oh, that's the worst. Go home. Change the channel. Go play some miniature golf. Ride a bike. Bowl. Do something silly. Eat something special. Love somebody. Have sex, with or without a partner. Come, if you still can. Remember how good it was if you can't. Death is the great humbler of us all. Since I'm gone, I suppose now I know who killed Kennedy, both Jack and Bobby. Think of me as a fart that smelled like a rose. I know I did.
Very good. Very good, Howie.
My pleasure.
I really enjoy your company, and I hope you'll continue to come in, check with us, but I can't let you go before your opening day thoughts.
Opening day thoughts. I have these two other segments that I was going to do for you. I got started on the one but didn't finish it. But my opening day thought is rooted in the Robinson experience, which is the recognition that baseball was participating in the promise of America. And that seems to, for me, it meant as one of 6 or 7 Jews, I played in baseball for 3 years with the non-Jews. And I made a place for myself in America. I could play ball. I was a fat kid and I was a catcher, but I was a good fat kid catcher. And the irony of this, after playing 3 years in that league, which I graduated at the age of 13 when you outgrow Little League, it turned out that 6 years after that, when we were all seniors in high school, and I went to a high school which was a third Jewish and 2/3 non-Jewish, but the distinction wasn't so much religious, it was neighborhoods. There were 3 different neighborhoods, and that was really the first line of demarcation of who was who. And I ran for class president, and I was the only candidate that knew 2 of the neighborhoods, because I knew the Jews and I knew the Greenfield neighborhood, and I got elected. primarily because I knew I grew up with all these kids. Because the magic that happened to us is when we entered junior high school, all of a sudden, all the Jews just connected with the Jews, and all the non-Jews connected with them, and we're sort of like we're segregated within the same school for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And I was one of the few kids that knew two parts of the school. So that got me elected class president, which I enjoy immensely because I'm still in office. I've been in office longer than Castro. I'm going after Elizabeth I. I think she has the longest reign. I'm going to beat that too if I stay alive long enough.
Well,
I'm going back for my 55th reunion shortly.
Well, you got by living in an area where the Greenfield district was not the Jewish area. So
No.
Can you imagine how confusing that must be to people coming into Pittsburgh? They would automatically think the Greenfields live here, that it must be the Jewish neighborhood.
That would be the Green Bombs, or the Greenbergs. The Greenbergs. Were you aware of Hank Greenberg when you were growing up? Was that somebody that you knew of?
I knew of him, but the focus for me was Al Rosen, who was we're pretty much the same age, and Al Rosen was a terrific third baseman with the Cleveland Indians, and then later Sandy Koufax.
Well, that was who I knew. That was the first Jew I knew in baseball.
Yeah.
In fact, the only Jew I knew in baseball.
And to this day, there are very few, but I very recently did an interview with Al Clark, the former big league American League umpire. He was the first American League umpire who was Jewish. He was the last American League umpire that was Jewish, and he will be the only one because now the umpires are just Major League Baseball. It's not American League or National League umpires. So, and he had some terrific stories to tell about being a Jew playing, umpiring. One of the few. One story that stands out of his is that he was umpiring behind home plate, and I can't remember the name of the catcher, but the catcher was Jewish, and the batter was Jewish, and he went out to.
They had a minion.
They had getting as close as you can get at home plate to a minion, and the batter was Sean Green, the former outfielder, first baseman. And they all nodded. Al goes out. He says, "Do you realize we're the only three Jews, probably the only three Jews in the ballpark, or something?" And they all
on the field,
the field certainly. And they smiled at each other, and I thought that was a great story. He also talked about the prejudice that he had to go through coming up in the ranks, and from players. One night came out screaming at him and calling him bad names, walking to the parking lot, calling him a kike this and a kike that. The prejudice from within the baseball community, there was this umpire, Al Barlick, who was either his boss or he was way up there in the hierarchy. And when Al Clark was coming up, Barlick promised, because he was a Jew, that he'd personally see to it that he kept him out of big league umpiring. And
Barlick was probably a National League umpire because I knew him. I wouldn't have been. Yeah.
Right, and years later he got promoted, and his exact words to Barlick, and I'm quote him when Barlick told him that. Fuck you, Al Barlick. Which is on one level or another, we've all we Yidden, all we Jews, all blacks, all Chinese, all people who are Italians who have faced it, prejudiced for no reason but simple ignorant prejudice by scared people.
Yeah.
But you got to stand up and say "fuck you" on one way or the other and let them know, just because it's cathartic to do it, and you know you're not holding it in like so many of our ancestors had to hold in shit all this time. So
I was about 6 years old. My brother was 11. We went to a Pirate game. My Uncle Manny was an usher at Forbes Field. And we're sitting down. We go to his section. He was in the box seats around third base in the day game. And he puts us in a couple of seats, and we're watching the game. Early in the ball game, we hear from further up in the grandstand, "Dirty Jew!" And Uncle Manny, who was a street fighter, says to us, "I'll be right back." And he goes up to where the Dirty Jew comment had, and a brawl breaks out. It's not just one or two people. It's a brawl. They are fucking doing it in the stands. It's like the Jets and the Sharks. And it gets so intense, the game on the field, the Pirates against the Phillies, stops. And all the players from both teams come out on the field, and they're standing there with their arms folded, looking in the stands and pointing out what's going on. It was the most incredible thing I ever, I'm 6 years old, and I'm terrified. And I see my uncle there. He's just, wailing away and getting hit. And it finally calms down, and he comes down to us. He's got an ear, like, hanging down off his head, and he's bleeding. And he says, "Look, I got to go to the hospital, but you and he says to my older brother, "Can you get him home okay?" And my brother says, yeah. He says, "All right, I'll see you. I'll let you know how it works out."
Yeah. Wow.
That wasn't opening day, but it was one of my all-time baseball memories that I still cherish.
Well, it's a good memory because we can never forget. And
no, they won't let us.
They weren't exactly.
Sooner or later, it gets around to the Jews. No matter what the fucking conflict is, sooner or later they bring in the Jews, and here we go.
Absolutely. I'm wondering when Trump finally hits the skids for the last time.
Well, when Dad's a Nazi supporter, it can't be too far away.
No, but his kids are Jewish. His son-in-law and this, that, and the other thing, and I've always wondered about that.
He'll sell him out for $1 anyway. That's who he is.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Hey, please come back another time. I really value
Well, it's been fun having an affair with you. Anytime you want to call, I'll just sneak off from the wife.
If you want to call it an affair, you can call it an affair. You're the guest. You the man.
Well, does that make you? You're the other man.
I'm the spam.
You're the other man.
The other man. Thank you, Howie. We'll catch up soon.
Pleasure.
Be well.
All right. Bye-bye.
And if you're listening out there, see what a great life I lead. Adios, everyone.